coded entertainment. But some games were more than play. They were sickness coded in pixels. Manhunt, Phantasmagoria, Harvester. Each one banned, buried, but not forgotten. And players still whisper their names.
What's the one game you'd least want your parents, your boss, or your browser history to know you've been playing? That's today's vibe. A tour through gaming's shadowlands, banned titles, adults-only oddities, geo-locked controversies, and whispered urban legends. Expect the likes of Manhunt, Phantasmagoria, 1995, Harvester, 1996, Hatred, 2015, Sad Satan, 2015, and Chiller, 1986. Strap in. It's grim, it's weird, and sometimes it's unintentionally funny. Number 6. Manhunt and Manhunt 2. When Manhunt debuted in 2003, it did more than just spark outrage. It got banned in New Zealand under their objectionable content laws. That ban held until January 19th, 2023, when the classification office reclassified it as RR18, signaling a policy shift toward age-restricted availability rather than outright prohibition. Its sequel, Manhunt 2, 2007, initially earned an adults-only rating in the US, forcing Rockstar to tone it down to an M rating, and was refused classification outright in the UK. However, after modifications, it eventually released there. In New Zealand, it also received an R18 rating on April 17, 2024. Germany remains restrictive. Both titles remain indexed or were subject to confiscation orders under laws prohibiting violent depictions. These classification histories reflect evolving global attitudes toward violent video games, from moral panic and prohibition to regulated adult access. Number 5. Phantasmagoria, 1995. Sierra's full-motion video experiment. Phantasmagoria was meant to showcase the power of CD-ROM gaming in the mid-1990s, but instead it became a flashpoint for international controversy. At first glance, the game looked like a traditional haunted house story. Gothic mansions, creepy puzzles, and occult themes. But what set it apart was the shocking inclusion of a rape scene, depicted through live actors and filmed sequences. While the developers defended it as part of a horror narrative, critics and regulators zeroed in on the fact that the violence was both sexualized and presented in interactive media, a combination that pushed the limits of acceptability at the time. In Australia, the classification board made an unprecedented move in August-September 1995, outright refusing classification on the grounds of sexual violence. That meant the game could not legally be sold or distributed in the country, a decision that made global headlines and added fuel to the ongoing debate about how games should be judged differently from films or literature. The significance of this refusal goes beyond a single product. For regulators, Phantasmagoria became the textbook case for what happens when video games intersect with sexual assault imagery. At a time when gaming was still fighting to be seen as art rather than toys for kids, this decision reinforced the idea that games had a special level of scrutiny because they required active participation. To this day, many academics cite the Phantasmagoria ban when discussing the broader subject of censorship and interactivity. What's even more fascinating is how this nearly 30-year-old controversy still echoes in more recent debates, such as the short-lived ban of Outlast 2 in Australia in 2017, where implied sexual assault again became the classification trigger. Number 4. Harvester, 1996. Few games embody the phrase cult classic like Harvester. Released in 1996, it blended point-and-click adventure gameplay with live-action full-motion video, creating a surreal and deeply unsettling tone. Set in a strangely perfect 1950s town called Harvest, the story gradually revealed layers of grotesque violence, cannibalism, and shocking imagery that seemed designed to outrage as much as to entertain. For many players, it felt less like a game and more like a grotesque satire of small-town Americana. Unsurprisingly, regulators in Germany weren't amused. In 1997, the game was placed on the BPJS/BPJM index, which restricted sales, barred advertising, and effectively pushed the game into underground circulation. For years, Harvester existed as a whispered name among collectors and horror fans who would track down imported copies as a kind of forbidden fruit. But time changes everything. In 2022, after the standard 25-year sunset period, the game was automatically removed from the index, meaning it could legally resurface without restrictions. This development opened the door for critical reevaluation, with some players arguing that Harvester is best understood as satire, a grotesque parody of both 1950s nostalgia and the very idea of video game violence. Others dismiss it as juvenile shock value wrapped in amateur filmmaking. Either way, its cultural importance is undeniable. It stands as a mirror to the anxieties of its time, when digitized gore and taboo subjects were pushing against the limits of both technology and morality. Today, Harvester is available on digital platforms, meaning that what once was treated as too dangerous for young minds is now marketed openly as a retro horror curiosity. Number 3. Hatred 2015. When Hatred was announced in 2014, its trailer immediately drew outrage across the gaming community and mainstream media alike. Unlike survival horror or crime sims, Hatred had no narrative justification. It simply cast players as a trenchcoat-wearing killer on a rampage against civilians. The game's tagline about hating the world and wanting to spread Armageddon was designed to provoke, and it succeeded. The ESRB gave it an adults-only rating for violence, something virtually unheard of, since adults-only usually applies to sexually explicit material rather than brutality. This move alone made Hatred a historical anomaly, and the developers, Destructive Creations, wore the adults-only rating like a badge of honor. The controversy reached a peak when Steam Greenlight pulled the game in December 2014, citing its extreme content. That could have been the end of the story, but within days, Valve co-founder Gabe Newell personally reinstated it, apologizing to the developers for the removal. This reversal was shocking, since it showed how inconsistent platform policy could be when navigating the boundaries between free expression and public responsibility. While Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo maintain hardline stances against adults-only rated games, Hatred's eventual presence on Steam illustrated how the PC marketplace operates under different cultural and corporate pressures. Reception of the game itself was lukewarm at best. Critics panned it as shallow, repetitive, and exploitative, more interested in generating headlines than delivering innovative gameplay. Number 2. Sad Satan 2015. The legend of Sad Satan began with a small YouTube channel called Obscure Horror Corner, which claimed to have found a mysterious horror game hidden on the Tor network. The gameplay footage showed endless monochrome corridors, eerie ambient sounds, and disturbing imagery, creating an unsettling but fascinating curiosity. Initially, it looked like a piece of found footage creepypasta, a digital ghost story for the internet age. But things quickly turned darker when a so-called clone build of Sad Satan circulated online. Unlike the videos, this version allegedly contained real crime scene photos and even illegal child exploitation material, along with malware designed to infect the computers of the curious. The discovery changed everything. What could have remained a spooky campfire story for the internet suddenly became a cautionary tale about how easily fiction and reality can blur in the digital underground. Commentators and journalists scrambled to untangle fact from fiction, and many concluded that while Obscure Horror Corner's original footage might have been staged, the clones were all too real in their criminal content. This meant Sad Satan was not just another disturbing game. It was, in certain forms, a felony. Unlike controversial but still legal games such as Manhunt or Hatred, Sad Satan lives in infamy as a project tied to illegal imagery, placing it firmly outside the realm of cultural critique and into the territory of law enforcement. Number 1. Chiller, 1986. In the neon-drenched era of 1980s arcades, players were busy blasting aliens, eating pellets, or saving princesses. Into this environment stepped Chiller in 1986, a light gun shooter unlike any other. Instead of hunting monsters or enemy soldiers, players were tasked with torturing defenseless victims tied to racks, guillotines, and walls. The sheer audacity of presenting torture as sport shocked even jaded arcade operators. Many flatly refused to install the game cabinets, fearing backlash from parents and local authorities. Unlike later controversies where official bans came from government boards, Chiller was effectively censored by the market itself. Arcade owners simply said, "No thanks." Though technically playable and even boasting some grisly creativity in its pixelated executions, the game lacked narrative, context, or justification. This absence made the violence feel gratuitous, crossing a line from horror fantasy into sadism. A low-quality, unlicensed NES port eventually brought Chiller into homes, but it never gained mainstream acceptance. Instead, it survived as a curiosity whispered about among collectors and retro fans, remembered less for its gameplay and more for the cultural recoil it caused. And that's our deep dive into some of the darkest video games ever made. If you enjoyed this breakdown of gaming's most controversial corners, don't forget to hit that like and make sure you subscribe. Thanks for watching, and remember, play safe, play smart, and maybe don't go digging around the deep web for sad Satan. See you in the next one.
The cartridges rot, the disc scratch, but their shadows endure. And a digital nightmare is banned for a reason. But curiosity kills more than cats. Would you play them alone?